And welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. We told you we are back and here to stay and ready to go, gearing up for the barbecue at the Big House, Michigan's annual recruiting event. It is always hot. It is always loaded with big-time recruits and big-time storylines. And this year is no different. And it just so happens to have a lot of big storylines heading into it as well. Several commitments already, some more commitments on the horizon. Means no better time than the present to have another episode of the Michigan Recruiting Insider with the best, the most reliable, the most dependable crew in the Michigan recruiting landscape. That is the crew, the Michigan Insider. Starting off first, my man, Steve Lorenz. I don't see Boop around, so it's just Steve today flying solo. Steve, how you doing?
She's sleeping. Let's try to keep it that way, right? No. No, she's fine. She's been sleeping, and she was up all night causing havoc. So now she'll sleep during the day and probably wake back up again in the middle of the night and cause more havoc again. So it is what it is.
I see Brice over there kind of sweating, sleeping through the night. Might wake her up, bitch. Like, are you talking about my daughter? You having those thoughts over there, Brice?
Having flashbacks here. I'm getting scared. He's talking about I can't sleep through the night. I want to join the club because I'm definitely not doing that right now. It's all right.
Yeah, it's a juggling act.
Hey, she'll eventually sleep, hopefully.
Hey, I remember. I don't know if you're gonna be this guy. I remember back in the day, we used to see a guy bringing like the baby carriage to the. You remember you see a guy bringing the baby to the recruiting.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. That's a little much.
I even remember that. Yeah, no.
I was like, oh, hey, man, I'm down for, I grind. We always going to grind, but that's taking it to another level. Like some of these dudes some of these dudes go way too far. It becomes performative where you just want to show. It's an offer to show you. It's like, look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Look at everywhere I'm going. It's like, stop it, dude. You're doing a little too much right now. And that was a little too much, taking the baby to the recruit camp. So we don't expect you to do that, Brice.
You won't see that. Don't worry.
We do expect you to take her to some games, though. Like, you got to get your daughter to, Lions games and Tigers games, a Michigan game at some point. You got to make that happen.
I don't know about Lions.
What do you mean you don't know about Lions? You're not a Lions fan?
I am, but she's a 49ers fan. She's from California. So.
Oh, man. It had to be a house divided this year. Man.
Yeah.
What the 49ers did to our Lions, man. This guy.
So you got to put your foot down on that type of stuff.
Right.
I don't know why you're. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, at the time she was pregnant. I said, whoever wins this game, we'll let her. That's the swing vote right there, and it just.
Yeah. You got to choose your battles. That's one you don't concede, Brice. Allegiances for the kid. Yeah. Hey.
It's tough. I know. Senate support.
Hey, I got your back. I have Taylor's back on everything else, but on this one, I got your back, Brice. At any rate, fellas, I want to let the folks know before we dive into this week's episode. Listen, we have a great promo going on at the MichiganInsider.com. I hear all the time from current subscribers, hey, Sam, you got these promos. You guys got these promos going for new subscribers all the time. What about current subscribers? 24/7, we always tell them, hey, you guys got to do something for current subscribers because they get mad about what's going on. Listen, you current monthly subscribers, this current promo, you can take advantage. 50% off an annual subscription. It is available to current monthly subscribers as well. You can upgrade from a monthly to an annual subscription for 50% off. Limited time, but this is your opportunity to take advantage of that deal. So get it while it's hot, right? Now, go ahead and jump in. Those of you who want to just dip your toe in the water and test drive for as a monthly, you can get in for $1. And then you current annual subscribers, You aren't left out. Your perk is you get Paramount Plus. Don't miss out on your free access to Paramount Plus as a full paying annual subscriber. The promo people don't get that. Only the full paying annual subscribers get Paramount Plus. That means you get to watch shows like The Mayor of Kingstown, which is outstanding. The Mayor of Kingstown is an outstanding show. I can't tell you how much there's another show on there that I like called Evil. Now, if you are in the supernatural shows, really, really good.
Yellowstone.
Well, yeah. Do you have to? You don't have to have Paramount Plus to watch Yellowstone, though, do you?
No.
Yeah.
I thought you did.
It is.
For me, I know it's ad-free episodes of Columbo.
Columbo.
You know, the 1970s mystery,
Throwing it back.
crime drama.
Murder, She Wrote.
Every season of Columbo.
Hey,
yeah,
look.
Murder, She Wrote. All those shows are on there.
Listen, I got one for you. Like, it's a sneaky one that if you don't have Paramount Plus, you don't know about. But Zoe Saldana did a show on Paramount Plus called Special Ops Lioness. It is outstanding. Outstanding. Check it out. Binge it over the 4th of July holiday. I think it's like 8 episodes. Tremendous show. So again, you full paying subscribers to the Michigan Insider, you get Paramount Plus. That is your perk. So everyone gets something, right? Current monthlies. You can take advantage of the current flash sale promo. I'm going to put the link in the comment section. I'm going to put the link in the description. Take advantage. You want to show us love? That's how you show us love. Take advantage of these great flash sale deals. Subscribe to the site. Participate over on the message board. Help us keep going and growing over on the site. That's where we do it 24/7 over on 24/7 over on the MichiganInsider.com. If you've never tried us out, you just want to dip your toe in the water, you can sign up for $1. And then those of you who've been riding with us forever and you're an annual subscriber, take advantage of that Paramount Plus. All right. Now, let's go ahead and get into this week's episode. Michigan picked up a commitment since we were last on, guys, and we didn't talk about him in last week's episode. Oversight. But he's a guy that we all wound up crystal balling. We actually got word on this. We tried to kind of keep it under wraps, but once he started giving his turn downs, and that's how a lot of these get out. They get their turn downs to other schools, and then the other schools kind of tip people off, and then you start seeing predictions go in elsewhere. It's like, hey, well, now it's out, right? So Julius Holly, though, young man from Alpharetta, Georgia. And we'll start with you, Brice, because I think you were the first one to talk to him. Young man, 4-star from Alpharetta, Georgia, commits to the University of Michigan, a 4-star edge prospect to the Wolverines, and not just a Peach State guy, but a Peach State guy that had a Georgia offer, but he's going blue. Tell us about Julius Holly.
Yeah, that's rare. He actually had 33 offers, so this was a highly coveted prospect, 6'3", 230 pounds. A stand-up kind of edge rusher. And he's kind of, I don't want to say a late bloomer, but he started picking up those offers following that junior season. And guys just loved his tape. And Sam, when you talk about that Georgia offer, he actually went to camp in front of the Georgia coaching staff, performed well enough and got that offer. So it's not like they didn't like this is a guy that Georgia really, really liked. Big time land. His Final Four was Georgia, Michigan, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. And, big kudos and big credit to Lou Esposito. When he got on staff, which was later than most of the coaches, quite honestly, he's really shown he's a great recruiter as well, evaluator. And as you can see in these tapes and these highlights right here, good off the line, good burst. He has good hand displacement. He can shed blockers, and he finds the ball really well. So a lot to like about this take. Guy from Georgia, and essentially too, I know they did miss out on Marco Jones. That was a guy that Michigan was recruiting quite heavily from Danville, California. They're 4-star. He picked Texas A&M. But I think they're content with the edge position at this point. And I think they're basically done right there. So overall, I really like this defensive line class. And this is a guy I think not the biggest compare. If you're looking at like last cycle, you had like Lugard at Opayi, Donovan Baxter, some like bigger and longer guys. Holly's not that, but he's got that potential. He's got that motor, and there's a lot to like about him. High upside guy, and he's going to be perfect for this defense. And Wink Martindale's.
What I like about him, and you mentioned Lugard and my man that they got from Germany, who by the way is put together. What's the guy they got from Germany from
Kumba?
Yeah, Kumba. Who wow, like if you've seen him walking around, I mean, maybe people
first off the bus,
man.
Yeah.
Like he's between the strength staff and what they've done with him. What they've done with him in the what they were able to do with him in the weight room, and the not just the weight room, but the nutrition staff, and Abigail over there, man, they have really done a great job with Kumba. But listen, this dude, what I like about Julius Holly that's different is the way physically he is. To me, he can be your strong side end. He can play through contact, and I think he's going to be that more physical sort of a guy who can anchor against the run, who can not just power through a tight end, but through tackles as well. You see him muscling offensive linemen and muscling tackles. You see it on this tape, and that's one of the things that jumps out to me, how physical he is as a prospect. And that's one of the things, I mean, I think people look at these measurables and they see the 4.8 40, and I think that the strength characteristic isn't given enough credit, but I think that's one of the things that college coaches like the most about Julius Holly, and he's only going to get more explosive. He's only 230 pounds right now, Steve, so you can see his strength and explosiveness improving as he puts on another 15, 20 pounds once he gets into a college strength and conditioning program.
Yeah, so his early stuff he put out like a few weeks ago, which I think is I mean, you talk about a guy who's ascending, looks like a totally different player in a great way too. Love this pickup. The other thing too, watching these highlights immediately, he's got big time bend for a kid his size. There's a couple where he's getting super low to the ground when he's coming around the edge. So we know Michigan; those are the kind of guys that can get to the quarterback. Remember, that was one thing. A little bit smaller, but that was one thing. Remember Jaden Smith last cycle that stood out. Michigan really liked that bend coming around the edge. Holly kind of looks like maybe a slightly bigger version of Jaden Smith in that regard. So, yeah, no, nice pickup. Always good to go down to SEC country and win a legitimate recruiting battle against some SEC programs. Yeah, Georgia just offered, like Brice said, it was at camp, and I always say, I mean, people are always like, they're recruiting Texas and they're recruiting Georgia and all this stuff, and it's like those schools can't take every single one. That those states are so talented that those schools aren't going to get every single one of those kids so for a school like Michigan, they still have to go in there, recruit a bunch of kids out of those programs, the big programs down there. And, you get one or two, it's worth the effort that you're putting in down there. So another nice edge pickup. I like the class as a whole so far. I mean, you have a couple like very movable pieces with Marshall and Nate Marshall and Jalen Williams. Bobby Kanka. I love Allen's comparison to Matt Godin. I think that's a really good comparison, right? So you have that. So yeah, I think from now looking forward, we're looking for more of an anchor guy in the middle, a guy who's going to be a true interior, and a couple guys I think still left on the board, right?
You're on mute. No, you're still on mute.
still on mute. My bad. I
was like, I want to know what Sam says about DJ Sanders.
I'm still on mute. But yeah, DJ, look, the guy is DJ Sanders. He came in on a visit, had a tremendous visit. I think Michigan felt really good about where things stood coming out of visit. But you're talking about a Texas guy that Texas is really strong for. It does not seem like that visit or that recruitment is going to end anytime soon. So you're battling Texas for a Texas guy that there's a long game for, and that you already have had on campus for his visit. It's like you got a shot, but you're probably ice skating uphill. You keep fighting the fight, but you wait to see what else you're gonna do as far as that board is concerned. I don't know what you guys think about the DJ Sanders recruitment. Great to hear that Michigan is still in it, but fair to say that chasing Texas on that one, wouldn't you guys say?
Yeah, I just looked. He's from Belleville, Texas, and I'd say it's about an hour west of Houston. So he's also, I would argue, maybe almost a small town-ish type kid. Those kids don't normally, especially in those areas, don't go too far from home. To be honest, I was mildly surprised to hear that Michigan was in better shape than Texas A&M. I mean, I thought going into official visit season, that would be an in-state battle. So the fact that Michigan's still in it is encouraging, but yeah, not a recruitment I think you're going to see them put every single one of their chips into. But for the time being, I would still be putting, we're going to go with the chip analogy, I'd be putting a lot of them in there because this kid is big time. I mean, he's right. I mean, this kid would probably be the heir apparent, like inside to some of the, like to a Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, what could be the next like All-American caliber defensive tackle, in my opinion. I mean, he just looks that good. You talk about first guy off the bus, he kind of fits that mold. So yeah, and Texas is, I'm trying to think. Michigan could probably recruit against them as far as Texas is really aggressive with the defensive line in the portal. I think they just took 2 or 3 guys. They already got a couple D-line commits in the class. At least one projects to the interior, and they're after another one. So, Michigan could say you're our only guy there right now, and you would play early here. So,
well, listen. His mom confirmed. So to be clear, Michigan isn't just the vibes that are coming from Michigan recruiting class circles is not just them, seeing sunshine and rainbows. His mom confirmed to Texas folks that is Texas A&M, and Michigan. Like, it's those 3 schools. And so now that he's taking his officials to those 3 schools, it's like you're trying to figure out what you want to do. But again, the vibe that I'm getting is that it doesn't sound like it's going to end anytime. It doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. And even if it did, is it really over? That's the other thing. Like some of these, and we're going to talk about Hardy Watts coming up, for instance. When these recruitments end, are they really over? When they end, some of them seem like they aren't really over, even though a commitment has happened. And that's one of the things I appreciate with DJ Sanders. I mean, it's like he could make it over, but if it's going to go long anyway, why commit right now? That seems to be the kind of the thinking in that recruitment. So it sounds like, and this is the vibe that I'm getting from folks in Michigan class circles, is that this is going to go a bit longer, and that they're still really in it, even if it's against 2, like you said, in-state schools that are really going hard in the paint to keep him home. But this is the other thing, to one more point on DJ Sanders, that Michigan is in it with Texas and Texas A&M. Texas had 6 Lamborghinis lining the. I mean, I would have taken it personally.
Why don't they literally bring bells and whistles?
Come on, man.
Go into a room and just have a bunch of bells and whistles in there. I mean, give me a break.
I thought the same thing. Like, I get it.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it too. But
you're, but that right there is, you're telling me you think that's all I care about is this, which maybe that appeals to some, but I would be like, come on, man, seriously. But they had 6 Lamborghinis lining the entrance of their football building for one recruiting weekend, and we know how Texas A&M gets down, and yet Michigan is still in the mix for this guy. That ought to tell you that it's a new day from the NIL perspective when it comes to Michigan. So there's that. But Hardy Watts, fellas, in the last episode, we were all on the NIL, or excuse me, all on the the crystal ball train for Hardy Watts. Now, we were first to go Hardy Watts to Wisconsin. Let's be clear, because the Buckeyes were, oh, Sam Webb was wrong again about Hardy Watts to Michigan. First of all, I was the first one to say Hardy Watts to Wisconsin. I said Hardy Watts to Wisconsin before the Wisconsin guys said it. So stop it. So as soon as I got word of how this one was swinging, I put in a crystal ball saying that's the way it was going to go. And yeah, man, I mean, it comes as a surprise that they were able to get it done. I'm left to speculate, and I'm curious your thoughts on it, Steve, about what you think it was, because I think Michigan folks are probably still scratching their heads about it even after talking to them.
Yeah, that would be, I believe. Best way to put a little birdie told me that his gut told him Wisconsin. I think there's one thing, the one other, I wonder if he maybe vibed really well with their verbal commitments up front. Sometimes, O-line guys like to be a unit. There's a lot of camaraderie, cohesiveness there. I wonder if maybe he hit it off a little bit better with those guys. Honestly, I mean, it was a good close by Wisconsin, because we thought going into the Michigan visit, not only do we think Michigan was first, but I would argue both Michigan and Clemson thought it was Michigan 1, Clemson 2. So, yeah, credit to Wisconsin for closing. Obviously, it must have been a lot closer than what Clemson may have believed heading in. But, yeah, to your earlier point, though, Sam, about recruitments, are they over when they're over? This is one I still think Michigan's going to kind of keep going with. I'd be surprised if they didn't keep recruiting him, because again, like you said, I think Michigan was very surprised when they got word that it was going to be Wisconsin. I think that totally took them for a loop, which, doesn't really happen that often anymore. Not just Michigan wise, but recruiting, like very rarely our staff's completely caught off guard. Maybe a little more of the NIL stuff within some recruitments down south, but overall, I think most schools usually have a pretty good idea where they stand with a kid in the family. And this one was probably one of the more surprising. He's choosing Wisconsin. Like, one of the more, in the recent, like, last 3 or 4 cycles, probably one of the more surprising outcomes given the way it looked coming out of the official.
Yeah. So if you can look at that screenshot, I mean, I think it looks like, who is said to Wisconsin first? Buckeyes. This to the Buckeyes who check us out. I'm just pointing out to the Buckeyes who frequent our podcast. We love you. You help our numbers. Just so you're paying attention. You see, where's the Wisconsin insider who came sometime after the fact, right? You see that? Just saying. But I'm with you, Steve. I don't see this one when ending. And I wonder, is the stage too? I don't know. That's just total speculation on my part. I think the impression I got from talking to other people on the visit was that, man, his family was like, man, he's coming to Michigan. Like, he just has to go home and talk it over with family and friends just to make sure that it's not an emotional decision. You don't want to decide on the visit, but the family, like, he's coming. And then, of course, maybe his family was feeling it more than him. I don't. That could be the case, right? So, but at the end of the day, he felt more comfortable with Wisconsin for whatever reason. But to be that close, if you're Michigan, no, of course you don't give up on this one. If you were that close to it, and the kid is he's coming into the Big Ten footprint anyway. You're a Joe Moore, 2-time Joe Moore winning line. You had Zach Zenner over there. It's like, come on, man. It makes too much sense for him to, make his way to Ann Arbor to stop recruiting him. So they're going to be on him. This shifts the emphasis over to the guy who's been the biggest fish in the pond all along, Brice. The guy they've been targeting for some time. I remember whether when Sharon was still the O-line coach and offensive coordinator. This dude has been a top target forever, right? And so Michigan has been running this race for a while. He came on his visit, and I'm telling you that the vibe coming out of that visit is Michigan and Stanford, and the feeling amongst those who were on campus that week was like, hey, Michigan, it feels like Michigan has an edge here. Might be a slight edge, but for a kid who really is valuing academics a lot, obviously, if you have Stanford in the mix, but Michigan being able to show the best of both worlds, academics and competing at a championship level, being able to, O-line development. You look at the number of O-linemen in the league. Who was it that put up the graphic? Was it Caden Strayhorn's mom that put up the graphic last week about offensive linemen in the pros? I mean, Michigan pitching a lot. And here's the interesting thing. Is he close to making a decision? That's the buzz is that he could be making a decision this month. Now, I've seen nothing official along those lines, Brice, to say that one is coming, but that is the buzz. That's the word on the street that one could be coming this month.
Yeah, I remember when I talked to him after his official to Ann Arbor, and he just seemed like a kid that he was ready to get the process over. He doesn't seem like a kid that, enjoys all the glamour and the Lamborghinis and all the fancy stuff. I think he just wants to play football. He doesn't want to deal with all the outside noise. He doesn't want to deal with the recruiting process all the way up till signing day. That's just not his cup of tea. That's not the vibe I was getting from him. But the vibe, what I was getting from him was he's a high academic kid. He's big into relationships, and he likes just kind of the fit on and off the field. And there's a lot going in Michigan's direction. He was born in Bloomfield Hills. So this is where he was from. He didn't grow up here, but he was born here. He still has family in the state of Michigan who are Michigan fans. As Sam, you kind of laid out, the recent offensive line history is probably the best out of any school in the country right now, so to speak. The offensive line coach, who became the offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach, would be the guy in charge of everything for you. He's already established a good rapport with Grant Newsome, a guy he really highly respects, and kind of they have same minds, whereas, Grant was a high academic kid too, so they both are in that same mindset. And going back to that official, Michigan did a really great job with presenting him with a different look compared to Stanford. Because Stanford going in, all the buzz was they led. Mm-hmm. But a couple of things Michigan did. One, they had a lot of the guys kind of relate to him, especially Mouse Hen. That was one of the guys he really got to sit down and talk with on this trip. Where's he from? He's from Stanford. So right. He sees he's done it both. He's been at Stanford and he's done it at Michigan. He's had a little more success at Michigan, but he's seen both sides, And I think that was big for him. And he really liked the presentation by Grant Newsome and it's funny because before we got on here, I gave this comparison. I gave the presentation of what they compared him to Steve, and Steve kind of made a face to me and was like, and then he thought about it. He's like, actually, that's pretty good, which was Big Mike Owenu and how he compared, but his Patriots stuff and him at tackle. And that's kind of how they see Babalola. And at first people say, well, no, that's a guard. That's a big dude. He's nothing close to him. But then you watch him on the Patriots and the recent contract he got, and I can kind of see it.
You know what I think they mean as a finisher? Because this dude is a beast. I mean, you can see it on the film.
Right.
He's a beast. What I thought of, I didn't think of Mike Onwenu. When things sort of went sideways, Michigan at one point was recruiting David Sanders. We know we had David Sanders in studio, and David Sanders was such a freak athletically, and you watched him on the field. And that freak athleticism, the way he was able to finish people on the field, I was like, oh man, they won't come close to recruiting another guy like this. And Andrew Babalola is, to me, I don't know what you guys think, but Steve, I think he's right there with David Sanders. I think he's right there. Like, I think they're 1 and 1A, in my opinion. And he is an absolute devastating figure at the offensive line position. He not only is a guy, I mean, you want your left tackle to be able to play in space, to be able to handle quickness, but he is a devastating guy in the run game too, and you can see it in these clips, Steve. He would be the best offensive line recruit that Michigan has gotten in years if they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, I think as far as ceiling goes, right? I mean, because he already looks like, if we always base our rankings, so 24/7's rankings are based off of like NFL potential. I think Babalola's ranked somewhere in the top, like around 20th or 15th. If it's off NFL potential, he should be right up there with David Sanders, who I believe is like ranked 2nd or 3rd or something. Because you look at both players, to be fair, are guys that scream potential high NFL draft pick. I mean, like, bookend tackles are never not going to be a premium position in the NFL, right? And this kid has the, like you said, the athleticism, obviously, but is kind of that quiet, like that mauler, like that quiet assassin. You know, like he doesn't, strike me in communication I've had with him as a good kid, nice kid. Obviously, you look at Stanford, Michigan, he's got to be pretty smart too. Right. So kind of a total package type kid, but I think, like you said, Sam, that aggressiveness is maybe what, because there are kids that play tackle that are pretty athletic, the undersized guys, right? But there's that mean streak that can be kind of missing. Mean streak is what has basically propelled Michigan to where they are the last few years, right? You want those kind of mean guys, not just in the middle, not just the guys, you want all your tackles, everybody, to play with that aggressive, that smash mindset, I guess, really, that's really what it comes down to. And there's a reason he's been the guy he's been number one pretty much since, right? I mean, I think very early on with David Sanders, because they got Jaden Davis, they got Channing Goodwin, I think they probably made a strong push there very early, but I think it became apparent also pretty early that he was probably going to stay down south or somewhere south of Michigan at least. But ever since then, Babalola has been the number one guy for them at the tackle position, and in effect, one of the top guys overall on their board. Because I think they'd love, a big time tackle this cycle to pair with Sprague from last cycle and Blake Frazier.
Yeah, it would be a tremendous pickup if they're able to pull it off. And again, I want to stress, I've seen nothing to say that a decision is definitely coming. That's just the room. Put it this way. I know that that's the talk in Michigan recruiting class circles. I know that, they're thinking that one could be on the horizon. So, we'll kind of see if it works out that way. That would be some tremendous momentum this month if they can pull it off. Some guys that we know, one guy that we know is going to be making a decision this month that I think will lead to some momentum. Not as much in the rankings as much as I think it should be. If you watch his tape, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is a dude. But Philip Wright, Destrehan, Louisiana. I think we talked about him last week because at that point, I think we all had crystal balls in. The wide receiver who he has Georgia. I guess there's some talk that his LSU offer isn't that it's not a committable offer from LSU. Is it, what's the word there?
No offer yet.
No offer yet.
I think they're pretty much keeping him warm, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you wonder how he takes that.
No, I think that's right. I mean, let's be fair. LSU recruits receiver. I mean, you got Ohio State, Texas, USC, and LSU probably recruit receiver better than anybody in the country. So
yeah. So maybe they come in late. He's gonna be announcing his decision here coming up. But we talked about him. Like, I know we talked about his speed. This dude is a legit 10-3, 10-4, 100-meter guy. I mean, the player comparison I heard for him was Roman Wilson. Here's the thing, fellas. He's faster than Roman. Now, what I would say is Roman was more polished than I think Philip Wright is. At the same stage of development, Roman was more polished coming into college. Roman was more polished heading into his senior year of high school than Philip Wright. So this is going to be more of a developmental guy, assuming Michigan picks him up like I think they're going to. So more of a developmental guy for Ron Bellamy than Roman was, but the upside, given his speed, because Roman was a 10-5, 10-6 guy. This is a 10-3, 10-4 guy. He's rated the number 30 athlete in the country, number 534 in a 24/7 Sports Composite. Steve, this dude is criminally underranked right now. I can't see him finishing this cycle being ranked that low.
Again, not when the rankings are based off of potential, right? I mean, we see guys getting bumped up because of track times, track numbers all the time. So for a kid to be that fast, I think you mentioned Roman Wilson, also faster than Xavier Worthy was coming out of high school as well. And Worthy went from about where Wright is ranked right now in 87, 88 to a top 100, almost 5-star kid by the end of the cycle. So if Michigan finishes this one out and gets him, he would be, I think at that point, the easy pick in the class for a guy who could see his recruiting profile rise in a huge way over senior season. Because I think obviously a lot of the bigger questions with him are just his ability as a receiver, because the athletic traits and profile is already there. The other thing too, very long arms for a 5'11", 6-foot guy. I think that's another thing. Again, actually kind of comparable to Worthy in a way. I mean, that was another thing about Xavier Worthy. Very long arms for his size, can go up and pluck not just jump ball types, but even just high balls across the middle. And then he's going to leave you in the dust. So, big fan of him. I think this is a guy you take and give him a year or two, and you could have a legitimate game breaker. A legitimate deep threat game breaker type kid, and a guy you could use in other ways too. Maybe he's a special teams guy off the bat. Get him in the kick and punt return. So, to get another guy like this, we're talking Louisiana. Michigan hadn't gotten it. They got a Morian Walker, but before that, I think Drew Dillio was the last guy they had signed out of Louisiana, period. So to go into Louisiana like they have, and I think find 3 legitimate, Jasper Parker's another one that's kind of underrated in my opinion. But yeah, Wright is a guy I think, if Michigan can get that one sealed, I think he's a guy that would almost assuredly rise in the rankings as long as he stays healthy and has ample opportunity, I guess, receiving the ball for his high school team.
Yeah, and this would be a guy. So maybe you aren't beating LSU right now. They're trying to keep him hot, and I'm playing that angle. If LSU comes later in the process, man, they didn't think you were good enough to offer you early. That's the obvious play. But you're beating Georgia, 2-time national champ Georgia, wants Philip Wright bad, and they're much closer to home, right? They've had big time receivers down there, and if Michigan pulls this off, this will have been another guy who they will have convinced that this talk about, hey, Michigan doesn't throw the football enough, they would have convinced another guy that, hey, they throw the ball enough for you to really get off. They've already done it with Jacob Washington, who, the thing about Jacob Washington, Jasper Parker's teammate. Hey, the talk I heard was LSU was very interesting. LSU went to practice. They watched him at practice. They wanted him to come to camp. His coach Tierney, man, you gotta love him. He said, hey, my guy's not missing. He's not missing practice to go to a camp. So that wound up being a fortuitous bounce, I think, for Michigan, because he comes up to visit Michigan and winds up committing to Michigan. And so, but that's a guy who I think is going to blow up. He was convinced enough to think Michigan throws the ball enough to to, be a guy. And I think they're going to get Andrew Marsh before all is said and done. Crystal ball is in for Andrew Marsh. So if you get Phillip Wright, you got Jacob Washington, and if you add Phillip Wright to the mix, to Jacob Washington and Andrew Marsh, man, that's a hell of a class. Then the question becomes, Brice Marich, what do you do when it comes to a guy like Taz Williams? Because Taz Williams, I don't know that anybody covered Taz Williams in the country, not just on the Michigan beat. I don't know that anybody in the country covered Taz Williams before you, Brice. So what do you do? Because Taz Williams is the guy that Michigan is still very much in the running for. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he announces his decision the same day as Phillip Wright, that's July 13th. Phillip Wright is announcing his decision. I believe it's the same day for Taz Williams.
Yeah, it is. So that becomes a interesting scenario. And he was actually up on an official with Andrew Marsh and some of these other guys. And he had a good time. He's been up there a couple times before. He really likes Michigan. I know his dad loves Michigan as well. He's originally from Pennsylvania, so he has Midwest roots here. He's familiar with the area and all that. But to answer your question, Sam, if it was up to me and he called Michigan and called Coach Bellamy and said, I want to come to Michigan, I'm not turning away that commitment. Just because it's simple fact of, let's play a hypothetical game. You already have Jacob Washington. Let's say you get Phillip Wright and you do get Andrew Marsh. All three of those guys, you got two from Louisiana, you got one from Texas. Those are not like three in-state guys that, grew up and died hard Michigan fans. They're going to, anything happens, they're sticking through and through with Michigan. I don't see that with them. Again, with Phillip Wright, who knows? Let's say he does get the LSU offer. Does that change things? Jacob Washington, who I think is going to have an outstanding senior season. Who knows if he gets more offers? Maybe even LSU. You don't know. And then Andrew Marsh is, in my opinion, a 5-star caliber player.
I do too. I think so too.
You think schools are going to stop recruiting a 5-star wideout in the state of Texas? No. So at that point, why wouldn't you take a guy, a 4-star caliber guy who's got 56 offers in the country, compared to like Phillip Wright, 6 foot 190. He's not as fast as Phillip Wright, but he's a more polished guy. He's got the production. He's had 80 catches this past year for 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns. He can run the route tree. There's a lot to like about him. So that's not a guy you just pass up on because the numbers don't work right now in July. That's not how I look at him. Again, he's been trained by Margin Hooks, who's one of the top trainers in the country, who works with top-end wideouts yearly from the state of Texas and around just the southern states. I just can't pass up a guy like Taz Williams if he decided he wanted to come here. Now, I know Texas A&M, Penn State are in the thick of it, and they're major contenders as well. But if this is a guy that really wants to come to Michigan, you have to take him, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an interesting, you want to call, is it a dilemma? Think about this. Michigan went from, Steve, being a school that I couldn't convince a receiver to come because they don't throw the football enough, to now maybe having too many conceivably wanting to come, having four really, really highly coveted guys or high upside guys wanting to come. And Marsh is obviously the most coveted of the bunch. I agree. I think he's a 5-star guy before all is said and done. He's, talk about Xavier Worthy. I think he's the most Xavier Worthy like of them all, and potentially a top 25 guy before all is said and done. But Taz Williams is a guy who they've been recruiting, I think, probably as long as Marsh. He has that unique distinction, so you know him as well, and you feel like it is probably, from an insurance standpoint, would probably be one of the safer guys from a commitment standpoint if you were to take him. That's not to say that other guys, you wouldn't be able to keep the other guys, but there's going to be some exposure, some vulnerability, Steve, with those other commitments. If, for instance, LSU wants to jump in on a Philip Wright or a Jacob Washington, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, it's July. I just think it's too early to put such a hard cap on those numbers when, like, you know, as we've said, hard to imagine other school that it's definitely at least a possibility, right? I guess if I'm Michigan, I first approach Andrew Marsh because he's deciding last, and he may be the guy that you covet the most to say, hey, we think we're going to take 4. These are the other 3 guys, you know, make sure he's okay with all that. You don't want to lose him by taking 3 guys too early. So you got to go that route. And as long as that's cool, I think you take all 4 guys because, yeah, it is. It's only July. You could end up really screwing yourself over if you don't take guys that want in now, you know, like you said, because, yeah, schools aren't going to stop with Marsh. LSU could end up being a problem with Philip Wright, Jacob Washington, or both of them. You don't know. We'll see where they go with some of their other receiver targets. But both Louisiana kids, right? You got to be open to the possibility that they're going to come around still. And, yeah, even if you have a board behind the curtain, you know, of unoffered guys, let's say, that you think are good enough, but they're like down the board a little bit. In July, I just don't think you say no to any of these 4 guys, you know, so.
Yeah. I don't know which way they're going to go. And you're right. You got to start. This is a great point. You got to start with, you pick up the phone, you talk to Andrew Marsh. There's no question. Folks, if you haven't watched the interview or listened to the interview with his mom, like, I put up the piece, I actually flipped it to free. So those of you who haven't taken advantage of the promo offer, you can actually check out the interview with his mom. The long form story over on the MichiganInsider.com is actually free now for you to watch, or you can go to the YouTube page, and I turned the interview into a waveform, so you can actually listen to the interview on YouTube, and it's very clear. I mean, if you listen to that interview and you don't put in like a virtual crystal ball, like, I don't know what you're listening to. Like, it is very clear that Michigan has done an outstanding. Ron Bellamy, by the way, I don't know if the numbers are going to back it up. The rankings are going to back it up because, you know, these guys, I think Jacob Washington, his ranking might not back it up. Philip Wright's ranking might not back it up. If Ron Bellamy pulls off these 4 receivers, I think he should be in the running for recruiter of the year, given the circumstances that he's faced. There's no coach on this staff that, and we talked about it last week, that's faced a tougher recruiting job than Ron Bellamy. It is very clear coaches have effectively negative recruited Michigan on the receiver front. They don't throw the football enough. Why would you go there? It has been very effective. And so credit Ron Bellamy, credit Kirk Campbell too. They've done a great job of getting guys on campus and saying, listen, this is how much we've thrown the ball. This is how much we're going to throw the football moving forward. And they've been convincing enough to get guys in the fold. And between Andrew Marsh's mom, Eleanor, and Andrew himself, now there's a VIP story with Andrew where Andrew is very forward about it. This is his biggest takeaway from the visit was that the conversation about how much are you going to throw the football? That's what he said. That's what I took away the most. And so that was, I think I put that story up yesterday. That is a VIP story. Check it out over the MichiganInsider.com. If you aren't a subscriber and listen, you can spend $1. And just if you want to dip your toe in the water for a month, take advantage of the promo and do that. And check out the story. You're right, Steve. You pick up the phone and you talk to the guy who I think you lead for. He's going to be one of the highest rated guys in this class. If he says, wait a minute, I thought you said you were taking 3, then you got to make a decision. Is it Philip Wright or is it Taz Williams? Right? You got to do what you got to do. But if he says, I'm cool with you taking 4, then you take 4. I know you still got your iron in the fire with a couple of 5 stars, right? I think that's the way to put it. When you talk about guys like, Jerome Miles, who is tentatively scheduled to come to the barbecue at the Big House. I know there have been reports to say he's definitely coming. He's likely an attendee to take a visit for the barbecue. And then Derek Meadows, who they've already had on an official visit. You keep running the race with those guys, Brice and Steve. But fair to say, those are long shots. Those are long shots. But, if these 4 guys right here, if you can get these 4 guys, I think you take them and let the chips fall where they may, given how volatile recruiting is. I'm with you guys on that front for sure. So, and Ron Bell, I don't know what you guys think about it. I know, Brice, you tweeted out about Lou being one of the top 5 recruiters in the Big Ten. If Ron Bellamy pulls this off, it might not show up in those rankings, but I think based on the eyeball test, you know how we do the eyeball test in football? The eyeball test as far as recruiting jobs go, Ron Bellamy will have done one of the best jobs in the country if he pulls this off.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this has always been a tough sell for him, which sounds crazy coming from a team that just won a national title, but that's just what the perception is with this offense. And especially with Sharon has made it very clear they're going to still run the football. So for him to get guys from, and again, these are not just layups, guys that he would be getting. These are 5-star caliber or, guys from Louisiana. These are hard territories, regardless of even wideout, just any position to get a guy from Texas or Louisiana in general. But to pull a wideout from those states, that's more than impressive. And I think Sam, if he can do it, this is a guy that definitely deserves a pat on the back, because he's gotten a lot of flack from, his recruiting. And that's not anything to say. And if you really think about it, if you get, let's say, all 4, this might be one of their better wideout classes since maybe they got DPJ, Nico, and stuff since then, right? Because other than, no offense, but it's it's a really impressive recruiting class if he can compile that together.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just thinking about what you said. People been giving them flack for the recruit. That's people who haven't been paying attention. They haven't been paying attention to the absolute hurdles that have been placed in front of him as a recruiter. And so doing a very effective job. This is really a basic discussion about, I think Steve laid it out right. What is Andrew Marsh? Where is he in this discussion about Michigan possibly taking 4? And then does Taz want to come? Because I think at this point, I have a crystal ball in for Phillip. I think Michigan gets Phillip right. I think they get Phillip right. So, so then the question becomes, does Taz want to come still if you're getting Phillip right? And is Andrew Marsh, if you think he's in the fold, is Andrew Marsh cool with there being 4 in the class? And so that to me is the calculus for Michigan to figure out. We'll round things out talking about DB recruiting, a guy we had in studio who would be another cornerstone in this class, man. Shamari Earls is a massive, massive recruit. South Carolina was able to pick him up kind of surprisingly at the time. I don't know how they were able to squeeze him when they did. The corner out of the Richmond area in Virginia, a guy who he told me, when you talk about athletes, he is one of the top athletes in this class. He currently he's listed in the 24/7 Sports database at 6'2", 180. When he came into the studio, Brice, I was like, 180? He said, no, I'm 6'2", 203. He's ranked number 68 in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, number 8 corner. He's a 10,600 meter guy. He talked about his long jump being an inch off the state record that was set by Noah Lyles. I mean, this dude is a physical freak. I just don't see any way he stays committed to South Carolina. He had a terrific visit to Michigan. It was an unofficial visit. Michigan was angling to get him back for an official. He took an official to Georgia the following weekend. Now, Michigan was really trending. I think you would agree, Brice, really trending with Shamari coming out of that unofficial. But he goes to Georgia, and the word I got coming out of that Georgia visit is they did a tremendous job. He said something that stuck out to me when we sat down with him. He said, I want to go to where I'm needed, not where I'm wanted. And he used Texas A&M as a reference point. He said, man, they got 4-star corners in the class. He said, now I'm confident enough in myself to think I can play wherever I go. Like, it's not like I think just because they got 4-star corners, I can't play. But I mean, they don't need me as much there as other schools might need me. So, you know, the obvious play for Michigan versus Georgia is, oh, hey, we need you more. But Georgia effectively combated that. They said, well, look at our recruiting class, Shamari. We don't have a corner in our class. We need you. They missed on some guys. We need you in this class, and it's working. And they said, look at our all-star cast on defense, and Muschamp and Dante Williams and, you know, Kirby Smart before, you know, look at, I mean, he's the highest paid coach in college football. And, you know, we got the all-star coaching staff over here. And, you know, this is how we get down. Really, I think the trend was for Georgia coming out of that visit, so much so that there was talk that a flip decision could be coming this week. So to me, it became a question of, would that decision happen this week? And we're midweek now, and you still got your ear to the ground wondering if that's going to happen. If a decision comes this week, it is feeling like Georgia. Michigan needs to weather this storm this way. If they can weather this week, Brice and Steve, I consider that a victory, because now you get to the point where, can you get them back on campus for an official? Now you get them back on campus for an official, and you can start tugging at those heartstrings again about the fit. All the things that he was like in his fit with the coaching staff. He was like in his fit with the players. He was like in the academic fit. He was liking the need, which, Steve, this is where I want to go to you. I still think Michigan has the need argument over Georgia. Maybe not as much in the current recruiting class, but if you compare the recruiting class the last few recruiting classes, I think Michigan can still make that argument of need over Georgia to Shamari Earls.
It's not even close. Jair Hill, Cam Calhoun already transferred out. DJ Waller transferred out. So that's all you have. You have Jair Hill from 2023. In 2024, you have JoJo Edmond, and then you have Jeremiah Lowe, who we project to nickel down the road, most likely. That's one corner total in each of the last two classes. They also have none in this class like Georgia does. Georgia, meanwhile, has signed 3 4-star corners in each of the last two classes. One of the kids they signed last cycle, Ellis Robinson, was the number 2 overall player in the country, regardless of position. I mean, they it's not even close. I don't even know how that can be made as a big argument. And Georgia's still recruiting other corners too. It's not like, as is Michigan, to be fair, in this cycle. But as far as like the upcoming depth chart, I mean, Michigan. That's why do you think they took how many guys they take out of the portal this
3
cycle? Right,
3 corners.
Yeah. Why do you think they did? Like they need depth at that spot. Really, they need and going forward recruiting, they need top end depth, and that's what Earls would provide. So as far as like if
2 corners,
if it's a need versus want thing, I just don't know how you could compare Georgia to Michigan right now. I just don't think it's really even that close. So
Yeah, this dude is a freak. He is a,
kind of an indictment on your current roster. You know, when you've recruited 6 4-star guys the last 2 cycles, to say that that we need you right away. You know, Michigan, like I said, 2 4-star guys total, one of which has not played one down for them yet.
yeah.
So yeah,
This dude has difference maker written all
big time prospect, yeah.
all over him. You know, he plays early. He comes in and plays right away. And again, he's talented enough to go in and play early at Georgia too. I don't want to say that he's not. But again, would the role be as big? That's kind of the point. You know, they got a lot of guys, and Michigan should know half the guys that Georgia got, they beat Michigan for. Like, Michigan was the direct competition for like 3 or 4 of those guys. So it's like, man, you know, Michigan knows firsthand how good that cornerback room is down there in Athens. So
Chris Peel, right? Andre Evans
yeah.
was another one. I mean, that's just and those guys were elite coming out, and so they're just getting into their second, third year in the program. Like, you think those guys are probably the guys, if you're Georgia, are going to play a lot. When I think we'd agree Earls looks talented enough to legitimately play for Michigan immediately. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Again, you gotta make it through this week. You gotta make it through this week. We'll be dropping some intel over on the MichiganInsider.com about some things that are on the horizon about Michigan's contact with Shamari Earls. So be on the lookout for that over on the Victors Club message board. That's our VIP message board over on the MichiganInsider.com. We'll be dropping that a little bit later on today. By the time you see this episode, it'll already be up. So be sure, if you are a member over on TMI, to go check out our VIP message board for that piece of intel. The other guy to really talk about is Ivan Taylor. I don't think we talked about Ivan Taylor in the last episode. He is a safety commit for Notre Dame. And so this relates to Jadon Blair too. So we did talk about Jadon Blair in the last episode. Jadon Blair is a safety target that out of Winston-Salem that Michigan has been pushing really hard for. Michigan has prioritized, but I can't remember if I said this on the episode. I know I said it on the message board though. People said, "Hey Sam, what do you think of where Michigan stands with Jadon?" And I said, "Hey, I think Notre Dame leads." Like in the interview I did with Jadon, at the very end, I said, "Jadon, people are saying Notre Dame leads. What do you think?" And he said, "I understand why." And then he went on to confirm. He went on to confirm like all the reasons why people think Notre Dame leads. Well, they lead, right? And this was after the Michigan visit. So, I mean, I at that point, the question is Michigan running number 2? Or, and then he took the visit to Penn State after that. And so then the talk started being that Penn State was the biggest threat. So now, if Jadon Blair goes to Notre Dame, does that help Michigan with Ivan Taylor? That becomes the question, Steve, because when I talked to Ivan, man, I got real serious vibes off of Ivan that he was liking Michigan a lot. Like, the interesting thing about that conversation is, well, Ivan, hey man, you know, what's going to be your criteria that you use to determine a flip? He said, man, that's a private question. He's like, man, you can't be asking me that. And I was like, well, that's like a basic question, but that he felt it was such a sensitive thing told me that he is really thinking seriously about it. Like, he liked Michigan enough to really be contemplating the flip, Steve. And I wonder if Jadon going to Notre Dame might help that process a little bit along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt. Notre Dame has Ethan Long also committed at safety. There's another kid in their class that's listed as a safety, but I'm pretty sure he's a linebacker. But either way, another area where Michigan may have a depth chart advantage, right? And Taylor's a kid that Michigan, I think, has quietly been recruiting for a little bit longer than we probably realized. which makes sense. He's got a pro pedigree. Notre Dame, Michigan always have interest in very similar kids, right? A lot of kids that are interested in Michigan are interested in Notre Dame, vice versa. So not necessarily a huge surprise. But yeah, no, I think Blair is a kid, a little bit of a different type of safety than Taylor probably is, but still, you put three guys in that room, and Michigan, with Winston kind of being labeled more of a Sainra still type guy, Michigan still has use for a box safety type kid in this class. So yeah, no, very intriguing recruitment, and one that, again, I think we're going to hear more and more about him as things progress, right? Because it's clear, I mean, he's visited Alabama also. I mean, it's clear that Notre Dame, who apparently, I guess their no visit policy doesn't exist anymore. I thought I guess that's one of those asterisk. If you're highly ranked, you can visit other programs. But Taylor's been to Michigan, he's been to Alabama. Both those schools are continuing to recruit him, so will be kind of an intriguing recruitment to follow going forward. And yeah, son of Ike Taylor, right? So I just feel like NFL guys like that, they just always seem to pan out. I mean, I remember when Antoine Winfield Jr. was like a low 3-star, and I'm like, nope, gotta get the, and now here he is,
highest paid safety in the league, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, come on, man. Like any pro pedigree with a guy who had success in the pros too, I would gravitate towards those kind of guys.
Yeah, this dude is a ball player, playmaker. I get why you get enamored with Jadon, because his measurables. Jadon is long and rangy. He's a bigger player than Ivan, but Ivan's IQ, I think, is off the charts, and that's another thing that sticks out, Steve. It speaks to your point about being the son of a pro. Those guys just typically are high IQ players, and Ivan is a high IQ guy, and they just play smart football. And I like for my safeties to be high IQ players. So he is one to watch. I know, Brice, you did a piece, and want to send a shout out to Michael Clark for helping us out with Jordan Young. That's another, as we close this out, that's another safety target that Michigan is in on. I think Michigan is in better shape with Ivan Taylor, but Jordan Young is one for people to still look out for with as far as Michigan is concerned.
Yeah, top 247 safety from North Carolina. He had a really good time for Victor's Weekend. He was up for that trip. Lamar Morgan has done a fabulous job recruiting him and his family. But I feel like, and if you look at the crystal balls, he's leaning towards Clemson. And I got that vibe of, one of his main questions, Sam, I remember, was he asked Sharon Moore point blank. He's like, this isn't the closest school to me, so I want my parents to be at every game. So is that feasible? Is that plausible? Like, can that happen? And I think Sharon's like, well, we do a good job of getting the parents to as many games as possible as we can. But I think just him bringing up that question is a cause for concern of, he's thinking about distance from home, and Clemson's a lot closer from where he is. So I know he mentioned meeting up with Channing Goodwin, a guy from his area, and kind of connecting with him on the trip. But overall, right now, I got the vibe he's going to stay more south than come up north.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll keep our ear to the ground. Of course, you can always keep up to date by following us over on the MichiganInsider.com. And I want to remind those of you who are not members, we have a great option, a great deal going on right now over at TMI, 50% off an annual subscription. And for you current monthly subscribers, this is a deal that is available to you. We hear your calls like, what are you doing for the current subscribers? Well, this deal is available to you current monthly subscribers. You can upgrade to an annual subscription for 50% off. All right. For you folks who are not current subscribers and you don't want to take advantage of the annual 50% off, you can join for 1 month for $1. Doesn't get better than that. And then you long time annuals, you folks who have been riding with us for a long time, what is your perk? What do you get for your loyalty? you get Paramount Plus. Again, the folks who join us on a promo, they don't get that perk. They don't get that access. And I'm telling you, if you aren't taking advantage of it, you are missing out. We talked about some of the programs in detail earlier in the show, whether it's, Special Ops Lioness with Zoe Saldana. You can binge that over the 4th of July holiday. You will not regret it. It's a great show. Check it out. Of course, the Mayor of Kingstown, you can't binge that. That would take you longer than the 4th of July holiday. But you can start it. It is a great show. And I am glad. I am so glad. Man, you talk about a dude who has really been through it. I mean, man, Jeremy Renner, man, he almost died. He got run over by like a snowplow. And I didn't think he would ever be back to being able to do the show. He is back for season 3 of Mayor of Kingstown. It is a tremendous show. And it's based in a fictional Michigan town, Kingstown, Michigan, which doesn't really exist, but it's a great show. So if you are taking advantage as a full-time annual subscriber to full paying annual subscriber to the Michigan Insider, don't miss out. Take advantage of your Paramount Plus subscription. Log in and check out some of these great programs. All right. Until next time, folks, have a happy and safe holiday. Thanks for riding with us on another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider.